You're listening to 1490 WBCB, Levittown, Fairless Hills, Trenton, and now heard as well on FM at 107.3 FM, W297CL, Levittown.
This is the Independence Blue Cross Monday Night Kickoff Show, a weekly recap of your Philadelphia Eagles. Broadcasting live from Hard Rock Cafe in Philadelphia, tonight's show is brought to you by Penn Community Bank, Hard Rock Cafe, Philadelphia, Independence Blue Cross, The Capitol Grill, Rob's Automotive and Collision, and BCWSA. We now go live. Cafe in downtown Center City, Philadelphia for the Independence Blue Cross Monday Night Kickoff Show. Now, here are your hosts, Paul Jolovitz and Paul Domowitch.
And thank you very much, Matt Miro, and welcome here to the beautiful Hard Rock Cafe at 12th and Market for the Independence Blue Cross Monday Night Kickoff right here on 1490 WBCB and 107.3 FM. Unless you were under a rock somewhere, you might have heard we had a fairly good sports weekend in Philadelphia. Topped off last night by the cherry on the Sunday. The Eagles' 26-17 win over the dreaded Dallas Cowboys. We're 6-0 now and rocking and rolling. Paul Domowitch, my co-host. We have a great guest. Everything's looking up tonight. Certainly the Eagles are.
Great time to be a Philadelphia sports fan, Jolly.
Great time to be a Philadelphia sports fan. And let's not have any further ado about this. Our guest is somebody that I worked with for years at WIP. He worked with Glenn McNabb for many years, just retired a few months ago. You may ask, where is he? He's right here. He's right here to our right. He hasn't gone anywhere. Still interested in the Philadelphia sports scene, touring the world, having a great time, living large, but still not far away. Mr. Ray Didinger. Ray, welcome to the show.
Good to be with you guys. And you're right, this is a great time to be a Philadelphia sports fan. I was just walking up here, and they have a big sign outside here, the Hard Rock, which says happy hour. Well, it sure is. This past weekend was, I've been asked a lot, has there ever been a better one in Philadelphia? And I don't know, maybe there was, but I can't remember.
Yeah.
I can't remember. Listen, the championship's different. It is what it is. We had the Eagles parade, Phillies parade, but for a regular weekend with the amount of things, heck, the Flyers are undefeated. I think they should have had the Stanley Cup in the building the other night. Maybe not. Maybe it's a little early. Sixers going tomorrow night. Damo, Phillies, where do we start? Now, I like how the teams kind of support each other. Joel Embiid at the Phillies game, at the Eagles game. Rob Thompson beating the drum. Of course, he's from Canada. At the Flyer game. That's kind of cool, isn't it?
Yeah, the fun thing about Philly is it's a big city with a kind of a small town atmosphere where all these guys know each other, don't necessarily hang out together, but support each other like that. It's kind of cool.
It really is. I thought one of the really cool things was when Real Muto hit his inside the park home run, they cut to a crowd shot, and in the crowd shot you saw Jay Wright.
That's right.
In a Phillies jersey waving a rally towel. I do think that is cool. I mean, you had Joel Embiid on the sideline at the Eagles game. The fact that in this town that it is a sports community, and these guys do support each other. It reminds me a lot of the 70s when things got good here. After being down for a long time, things kind of got good here at the end of the 70s. And you had the same kind of thing. A whole bunch of the guys, like Doug Collins was best friends with Mike Schmidt, was best friends with Ron Jaworski, and they went to each other's games, and they supported each other's games.
Near each other in South Jersey.
Yeah, they all lived right in that little community there called Alluvium.
Alluvium, right.
And all the hockey players all lived there. Bobby Clark lived there. Vince Papali lived there. Yep. They were all next-door neighbors, and they all supported each other. And it was part of that whole kind of renaissance that we had in Philadelphia sports at the end of the 70s into the 80s that really made it a special time.
They all worked out with Pat Croce, too.
They did.
Kind of tied it all together. All right, guys, I have something I wanted to talk about last night's game. We're going to delve into everything. We're going to talk about the bye week afterwards, obviously everything about the game. But I think when you win, you got to learn. That if a win without learning is an empty week. And obviously they can go 17-0. I don't think they will, but 6-0 right now. In the first couple weeks, Tom and I talked to Ray about the fact that they won games and, okay, they beat Detroit. They didn't really learn a lot other than what it's like to lose a big lead. But last night when the Cowboys came out in the third quarter and took it to the Eagles, I thought that was great. I didn't think it was great while it was happening, but the Jacksonville overcoming the 14-0 deficit, they stared at the iceberg and they overcame that one. The long drive against the Cardinals in the fourth quarter on the road, door number 2. Last night, losing the big lead, national TV, Jalen Hurts comes back and they stuff it down their throat. I actually love that after the fact. Do you guys?
Yeah, I mean, I do. I think that it proves something. It's funny. Even when at 2017, I never thought for a second they were going to lose the game.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sitting there watching 2017, and I said, Cooper Rush will do something stupid, and I mean, maybe the Eagles will come back and take charge and win it, or the Cowboys will find a way to lose it, but they're not losing this game. I just never ever felt that. But what you saw at the end of the Arizona game and what you saw at the end of this game, their ability to just take the ball and just grind it for 7-8 minutes is, I mean, that's something they have. That's something they can fall back on at any time, and aren't a whole lot of teams in the league that can do that, but their ability to control the line of scrimmage is one of the reasons they're 6-0.
Yeah.
Tom, were you ever worried last night?
No, because I just felt that the offense would get it in gear, and just like Ray said, you kind of always sensed that Cooper Rush was gonna, I mean, he would do something stupid at some point.
His name's not Cooper Pass; it's Cooper Rush.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What concerned one of the things that concerned me last night in that second half was something they've been very good this year about shutting down tight ends, which was not the case last year when they gave up 13 of their 28 touchdowns to tight ends.
Yeah, they got killed by tight ends.
Yep.
And so going into this game, the Cowboys don't have Darren Schultz. Something. This is Dalton Schultz. Something. This is they not only don't have their best quarterback, but they don't have his, probably one of their best receivers. And then they get kind of in that second half get beaten up by a bunch of guys that I still can't remember their names that played tight ends. They need to figure out what's going on there. I think part of it was, T.J. Edwards coming back down to earth as far as his coverage limitations and some other things, but they need to work on that.
Ray, if I had said to you at the beginning of the year that after 6 weeks, the NFC East would have an undefeated team, a one-loss team, and a two-loss team, never mind the Commanders, and would have turned in some people's minds from the NFC Least to the NFC Beast, you would have told me what?
Highly unlikely. To me, one of the biggest surprises of this year, if not the biggest surprise, is the fact that you got 3 teams in the NFC East that actually look pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean, the Eagles. I thought the Eagles were going to be good. I don't know 6-0 good, but I thought they were going to be good. I certainly didn't expect the Giants to be 5-1 right now. Yeah. And if you had told me that the Cowboys would be playing largely without Dak Prescott, I wouldn't have thought they'd be 4-2. So, one of the things about the Eagles over the last few years, we kept saying, well, they have the tremendous advantage of being in the NFC East because there were no good teams. No, I don't think you can say that this year.
Nope.
I mean, they look pretty good. Now, Washington is Washington, but the other 3 teams, I mean, it's not a stretch to say those 3 teams could make the playoffs.
Somebody asked me either this morning or last night whether I thought the Giants were now the second best team in the division, and I still think it's the Cowboys. I think once they get Dak back, which would probably be this week, that team is going to, I mean, they were very fortunate not to have Dak out on the field last night when they were playing him, because that probably could have been a deal breaker as far as being 5-1 or 6-0.
People forget Hurts had Dayball for a coordinator 1 year at Alabama, I think. He's doing a hell of a job with the Giants, obviously. They come back the last couple of weeks.
Coach of the Year candidate.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's the Parcells. Your record is what you are, what your record says it is. Maybe they are a 5-1 team. Who knows? Guys,
I'll tell you what really helps is Martindale is a difference maker on defense.
Yeah.
he had to be very happy yesterday, Ray.
Oh, he was. Did you see him? I mean,
Yeah.
it was like Buddy Ryan at Super Bowl 20. I mean, it was. But I thought the hiring of Daboll was really a good hire. I think he's a really good coach. People around the league that you talked to liked him a lot. But when he went out and hired Martindale to run the defense, I think they were really onto something. I think Martindale is really one of the best defensive coordinators in the league, and adding him to that staff was big difference maker.
Having kind of the old Saquon back too has helped, because, I mean, you look at their wide receiving core. I mean, wow. I mean, it may be one of the worst in the league right now with all the injuries. And, he's winning throwing to a tight end nobody's ever heard of.
Right.
So, I mean, they've needed Saquon, and he's been up to the task to get him enough points at least for the defense to kind of carry him.
All All right, Ray, Dom and I were wondering about this last week. I like to ask questions that make little sense because you figure out exactly what it means.
Story of your life.
Story of my life, story of my existence. But I'm going to ask a question that I don't normally ask it, in the form I don't usually ask it, just kind of a stream of consciousness question. You haven't been around. You're here now after 6 weeks. And my question is simply, Jalen Hurts.
I like him. I mean, I was one of the people, it seemed like a minority opinion in the offseason about do you trade all of your draft capital to go get the quarterback or do you ride with this guy? And the sentiment was largely, I mean, if you can get Russell Wilson, whatever it takes, go get Russell Wilson. And I said, any of you guys seen Russell Wilson play this year? You know, I mean, you're talking Russell Wilson 5 years ago, maybe we could have a conversation. I said, he doesn't even look like the same player now. No. And I said, listen, I mean, Jalen Hurts, in his first year as a full-time starter, took you to the playoffs. Yeah. I mean, why don't you give him another year to see what he could be? You might have your quarterback right now, but you're only going to know that if you give him a chance to play. Now, having said that, and being sort of a Hurts guy, what would I tell you? Do I think he has played better than I thought? Yeah, I do think he has. But one of the things that's true about his career, if you follow it all the way back, he is a guy that has improved every year. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you saw him play at Alabama, I mean, I never thought he would play in the NFL. Won a ton of games at Alabama, but he didn't look anything like an NFL quarterback. Okay. Then he went to Oklahoma, and you saw the tremendous growth of him as a quarterback. He began to really look like a quarterback. And then he came to the NFL, and he's done nothing but improve since he's been here. So he looked to me like a guy whose game was getting better every year. And I thought that with another year's growth and another year of working with the same coaching staff and them getting to know each other, you know, I thought that he had a chance to be a really, really good player here and maybe establish himself as your longtime guy. But 6 games in, I didn't think he'd be in the MVP discussion.
All right, Tom, well, 6 games in, the NBA starts tomorrow night. Is it a quote-unquote slam dunk that they give Jalen a new contract, that he becomes the guy 5-6 years, $825 billion or whatever the last guy signs for plus $1? Is that contract pretty much in the bag for Jalen right now?
Well, I don't think it's a slam dunk that he's going to be running to take whatever they offer. I mean, let's just assume this plays out and he has an MVP-type season. You know, I mean, you're having the same conversation you're having with down in Baltimore about Lamar Jackson. And they're having trouble signing him because, no matter how good he is as a passer, there's still the conversation about how long can he play the way he plays without getting hurt, without, so I mean that's in the conversation down in Baltimore with Lamar. I think it'll be in the conversation here. But I think in their mind, if he continues on this path this year, they'll be convinced he's the quarterback going forward. Now, whether that means a contract right away after the season, during the summer, my guess is maybe not. But that doesn't matter. I mean, he's got another year left on his contract. You can franchise him. I mean, there's no hurry.
Yeah, he's not going anywhere. And Ray, to me, Jalen Hurts, after watching him again from Alabama through Oklahoma through all this, he's a guy that plays aggressively without playing recklessly. I understand you can get hurt on any play, anywhere, anytime. But I don't think Jalen Hurts, he uses his DNA, which is his legs, to his advantage. But he doesn't take the unnecessary kill shot that some guys tend to take. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I do. I don't think he puts himself
He's not Josh Allen.
No. I don't think he takes that many risks. But I think that you have to be careful as a coaching staff how much you ask him to do. When he's got 15, 16, 17 rushing attempts a game, to me that's too many. I think he handles it well. We know that he's a pretty big, thick guy who's not a little frail guy. Nope. I mean, he can take a lick, but when I see his attempts totals getting up into the mid-teens and higher, and I think you're probably pushing the envelope a little bit there.
He went into this game with 68, I believe, rushing attempts in 5 games, which was a 231 attempt pace. Last year, there were only 7 running backs in the league that had that many rushing attempts. So, I mean, and you saw last night that they didn't I mean, there were opportunities he probably could have taken off. He didn't. There were, they didn't design a whole lot of plays early on for him, except for the quarterback sneaks. So,
well, let me break in there for a point, because that's something the NFL hasn't seen in a while. The Eagles' reliance on the quarterback sneak with the line they have, Jalen, and what to do. Does this rugby scrum quarterback sneak intrigue you as much as it intrigues me? Nick Sirianni on fourth down basically is going to go for it every time, and possibly some other times where you think it makes little sense. But this rugby scrum, specifically the way they do it, to me is very entertaining and very effective.
Well, surely is effective. I mean, the stats would show you that. It seems to me they get away with a lot of stuff in that, like around the goal line. I mean, there is a rule in the book about you can't push guys forward.
That's
you
what I
can't
thought.
drag
They
guys
never
forward.
call that anymore.
No,
Never.
they don't. But they did, and it's in the rule book. And it used to be called. I did see it called, but they don't call it now. But I mean, there have been a couple plays here where you clearly have guys behind him just shoving them.
They're lining up Dallas Goedert 1 foot behind him on those goal line quarterback sneaks and having him push them right in.
Yeah.
And there were the Arizona game. I think Kenny Gainwell and somebody else
grabbed him and dragged him across the goal line. Yeah. I mean, as long as that rule, I would love to. I was watching that and I said, wait a minute. I know that rule. They haven't taken it out of the book. I mean, I would really like to get. A Mike Pereira or a Dean Blandino or one of the rules guys on and say, well, what's the deal? I mean, if this is in the books, why aren't you calling it? Because clearly they're violating it. But as long as it continues to work and they're not dropping a flag, why not do it?
That's a great question, and we'll be back with more great questions from Ray Didinger and the like. We're here at the happy hour at the Hard Rock Cafe, at 12th and Market, where it's happy hour every Monday to Friday, 5 to 7 p.m. That's now $1 off Bud Light, Sam Adams, and Blue Moon Drafts, $6 House Chardonnay and Merlot, $5 Smirnoff and Cruzan Rum single liquor drinks, $7 doubles. Remember, we got a show after this, the Bull Session at 6 o'clock. We'll talk about that. W Sports Talk Mondays from 5 to 7 here at Hard Rock with the Monday Night Kickoff and the Bull Session. Talk Phillies playoff run in the NLCS. And the Eagles road to victory while enjoying some great food and our happy hour specials. We'll be right back with those specials with our producer, Chris Hermer, with the Hard Rock Monday Night Kickoff in the Plums Blue Cross right after this.
Hard Rock Cafe has it all. Great food takes center stage as they tune up your visit with free live music every Friday night at 6. Sponsored by Conshohocken Brewing Company. See Philly's best rocking the main stage while you enjoy Hard Rock favorites right here in Center City. Pickup, delivery, and catering available. For more info, visit hardrockcafe.com.
I'm Lisa Thomas Laurie. If you're on Medicare, I've got great news. Keystone 65 HMO plans from Independence Blue Cross have earned 5 stars, Medicare's highest rating for 2022. Some plans have no monthly premiums, no deductibles, and no copays for primary care visits and some prescription drugs. Don't wait. Visit ibxmedicare.com/star.
Every year, Medicare evaluates plans based on a 5-star rating system. Keystone 65 offers HMO plans with a Medicare contract. Enrollment in Keystone 65 Medicare Advantage plans depends on contract renewal. This is a paid endorsement.
A truly unique dining experience awaits you at Fogo de Chão. Fogo de Chão awes patrons with their history and tradition of authentic Brazilian steakhouse, offering many cuts of decadent fire-roasted meats prepared over an open fire and served tableside by trained gaucho chefs. Currently featuring a holiday promotion. If you reserve your party now, your guests are rewarded with 2 gifts of your choosing. Contract required. Fogo de Chão, 1337 Chestnut Street in Center City, Philadelphia. For reservations, go to www.fogo.com or call 215-636-9700.
Fall into relaxation at Hand & Stone Massage and Facial Spa. For an introductory price of just $69.95, enjoy the tranquility of their massage services and the rejuvenating glow their facial services provide. They even have specialty services such as a pumpkin facial or their signature hot stone massage. Restore, relax, and reset at one of Hand & Stone's 57 locations in Delaware, South Jersey, and Philadelphia, including the Lehigh Valley, for an introductory price of just $69.95. Call or book online at handandstone.com. Restrictions apply. See spa for details.
We now return to the Hard Rock Cafe, Philadelphia in downtown Center City for the Independence Blue Cross Monday Night Kickoff Show. Once again, here are your hosts, Paul Jolovitz and Paul Domowitch.
All right, we'd like to take a little right turn sometimes. We're going to take one now after we mention that the Independence Blue Cross Monday Night Kickoff Show from Hard Rock Philly. You can watch the show live at WBCBSports.com and Facebook Live by searching WBCB Sports. Incidentally, we got some tickets available for the Green Bay Packer game on Sunday, November 27th. We'll be starting that next week. We'll tell you about eligibility and how to get involved. So listen to the show, and that'll be there for you. Guys, this week in the strange but true situation, before we get back to the Eagles, John Runyon, the head of NFL security, or head of NFL discipline that you may know he played for the Eagles for a bunch of years, sent a letter to a guy named John Runyon, the right guard of the Green Bay Packers, informing them that he was fined for whatever, $5,000 whatever dollars. A letter from father to son. There was nothing special in it. Nothing, dear son, whatever. You ever think you see a father fine a son, Ray?
No, I can't think of something like. I wasn't aware that had happened. That's a very funny story.
Yeah. Tomo, he's not taking no prisoners, right?
I did a story on John, the father, like about 2 months ago for the 33rd team, and we were sitting over at his house, and one of the things I asked him was, what if you have to, find your son? And he says, and he pretty much said this is how he'd do it. He wouldn't hesitate, and he'd just send him a letter just like everybody else.
So what did he fine him for?
Fined him $5,000 for a leg whip or something like that.
Yeah.
The son said it. I didn't realize my father was still punishing me, but I guess I was wrong. He's appealing the fine, too. I guess you have to in the NFL.
Like 90% of those fines are appealed.
Yeah, I don't know how many.
And most of them are reduced, but not eliminated.
Well, the funny thing is, those of us that saw John Sr. play know that he played past the whistle a little bit himself.
The disciplined guys always seem to be the guys who went beyond in their playing days. I can't figure that out, but obviously he knows what beyond the whistle means, Ray.
Yeah. I mean, Merton Hanks was one of those guys for a while. I don't know if he still is. And, Mert was a pretty physical defensive back with the 49ers in his day, and he was one of the players that transitioned into the legal discipline office. So maybe they feel like it takes one to know one.
It's like hiring Jesse James to protect your bank. Not the porn star, the outlaw.
There we are. One thing that we've wondered about here is where the Eagles go, what the Eagles do from here. And Lane Johnson, the stalwart of their offensive line, last night looked fine walking to the locker room with a concussion. We were talking a lot before the show, guys, about how worried you are or aren't about Lane Johnson with the bye week coming up. Somebody who's had issues, not necessarily with concussions, but issues, you know what I'm talking about, the depression. Like, Ray, I'm very worried about Lane Johnson. Maybe it's totally unfostered. How worried are you about Lane Johnson?
I just took it at face value that it was a concussion thing, and they were just being careful about that. I didn't think of it much beyond that. I thought that, to me, I was looking at the schedule, and they got a bye week coming up, and they got a bunch of offensive linemen that have got some minor nagging injuries, and I thought the bye comes up at a good time. I hadn't really thought that there was anything more to Lane's situation other than just what they said, which was, just taking the blue tent and give him concussion protocol.
Domo, I agree with all the offensive linemen, all the injuries, bye weeks at a perfect time. Is there anything special with Lane that you think that I feel? Because I just think Lane's different for what. I wouldn't be shocked if Lane didn't play for a few weeks, and there's nothing I have to go by on that except my own gut. Am I nuts? I know I'm nuts, but am I nuts for that?
Well, I mean, if it's a concussion, you're nuts because there's no reason. I mean, there's no reason to use any more caution. And they use the ultimate caution, presumably, except with Tua. But if it's a concussion, I mean, whenever he clears protocol, he can play again. So I don't think his past bout with depression has any link to this, unless they're not telling us something that with this diagnosis.
Well, one thing that was certainly demonstrated last night is what a different team they are when he's off the field.
At least when Micah Parsons.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you saw for the first half of the game, Micah Parsons was about as much under control as Micah Parsons is ever going to be.
Wow.
And there were a lot of it was, some of it was really good formation stuff, some of it was influence stuff, good coaching, but some of it was just straight one-on-one where Lane Johnson just took him out of the play. That wasn't true when he came off the field. And look, I think Driscoll's a good player. I think Driscoll's a good young player. I like having him as a depth player. But you saw the difference when Lane Johnson went out and Jack Driscoll took over.
Well, interesting with Micah Parsons, because you talk about one-on-one. There were situations, plenty of them last night, if you were watching as closely as I know you do and I do, of one-on-none, where they didn't block Micah Parsons and used his pursuit against him. And it seemed to work really well, guys. pretty ingenious for the Eagles coaching staff to come up with that, using his natural DNA against him, Domo, huh?
Yeah, I mean, it's smart. I wouldn't go ingenious because it's been done by many people before. I mean, if you've got a great player, oftentimes the best thing to do is go right at him and make him make the move, and that's what they did with when you run the option as well as they do. I mean, you make him commit, and then you either hand it off or,
There were few things that worked with Lawrence Taylor, and I'm by saying that I'm not saying Micah Parsons is Lawrence Taylor yet. I'm not making that comparison.
Not yet.
But when you take a player of that caliber, who's that disruptive and that good, sometimes the only thing that works isn't blocking him. It's finding things that make him think. And I remember having a long conversation with Parcells about how did teams scheme for Lawrence Taylor. And he said the one thing that they always tried to do was either by formation or motion or influence, fake one way, go the other way, just make Lawrence think for a second or so, that he just doesn't feel like he's in control, that the ball's snapped and he's heading for your quarterback. Make him pause, make him read, make him think, make him slow. Mm-hmm. And then you have a chance. And I think that's kind of what the Eagles were doing with Parsons last night.
I'll be interested to see what Dan Quinn and Micah Parsons, in the period between now and when they play again, whether they make some adjustments, whether Micah Parsons takes a different approach to it, because I mean, they've got to figure out how to handle that next time.
All right, random question out of nowhere, guys. I'd love to throw these in. When Carson Wentz comes back from his broken finger, hurt it against Chicago last Thursday night, apparently out 3 or 4 weeks, what's your gut? My gut feeling in this night of gut feelings is that Taylor Heineke is the Washington quarterback for the rest of the season. You think Carson Wentz ever gets his job back, or is he Wally Pipp here?
Well, they made a commitment. They traded for him. They kind of got to give him a chance to play. They don't want to. I don't think they want to write it off as a failed deal. But I just saw an hour ago. I was online, and they're talking 4 to 6 weeks with Wentz now. So it pretty much takes him out of the game here in Philadelphia. It looks like there's no way he's back for that game. But I think the bigger question isn't what happens for the rest of this year, because Washington is, they're a train wreck. To me, the bigger question is, where's Carson Wentz after this year? Because the second half of this year is going to mean nothing in Washington. It's going to be the end of Ron Rivera, maybe the end of Dan Snyder, for all we know. But the rest of this season for Washington isn't all that significant. The larger question for Carson Wentz is, where is he next year? Yeah. I mean, does he have to go to yet another team and try and start over? And I mean, his story, the arc of his career, is one of the most perplexing stories that this generation of NFL players is going to come up with. I mean, somebody somewhere down the road is going to write the definitive, maybe a Sunday New York Times Magazine piece 10 years from now. Yeah. We'll track Carson Wentz down on a tractor in North Dakota somewhere and sit down and just say, hey, big boy, where did it all go wrong? There's a real story there.
We're talking about a guy that was on the way to be the MVP in 2017 until he tears his ACL. And it's been all downhill since. Just amazing. I mean, to the point, where he gets benched. And I mean, you made the Wally Pipp reference. I mean, that would mean Taylor Heineke is Lou Gehrig. I'm not going there. But the thing is, you've got a year coming up here next April in the draft. There are going to be a lot of very good quarterbacks. I would assume Washington is going to think real hard about getting one.
I think what we underplay a lot of us, myself I'm sure included, is the mental side of football. You might be doing what you're doing physically, but when you have adversity come at you, then your head comes into question. And how you handle things for different people is different things. Jalen Hurts tells me or shows me that he'll handle anything. Carson Wentz might be the other end of the spectrum, kind of like that Jeff George $1 million arm, 10-cent head. Do you get that impression at all, Ray?
No, the impression I get is that he has completely lost his confidence. Yeah. He just doesn't think he can play anymore. I mean, I went back and I looked at a lot of his tape from Indianapolis because I couldn't figure it out. I couldn't figure out how a guy that had played that well here, playing on a team that had a good running game, good offensive line, good weapons around him, how he could be so bad. And you'd look at the tape. And you'd look at it, if you're looking at the all-22, and he'd be looking at coverages that are so easy, so fundamental. He's looking right at, cover 2, or he's looking right at cover, and he's looking right at it, and he's holding the ball, and you're like screaming, it's right there, throw it. But he couldn't pull the trigger.
Yeah.
And that's the sign of a guy who doesn't trust himself anymore.
Yeah.
He was, in that 2017 year before he got hurt, his pre-snap ability at the line of scrimmage to understand what was coming and react to it was not just good, it was elite for a young player. And now that's gone. That is totally gone. And once that's gone, I don't know how you get it back.
Confidence is a dangerous thing. It's an interesting thing to study. A lot of people studying it. Somebody could use Carson Wentz as one of their foils. I want to remind you to join us here at the Hard Rock for live entertainment in the cafe every Wednesday. Enjoy some great food and our happy hour drink specials every Wednesday 5 to 7. This week, it's the Split Decision Duo. Friday Night Live, live music every Friday from 6 to 9, no cover. The best local artists on the main stage every week. Make your reservations. This week, Layla Giovanna. When we come back, Damo and Ray are going to talk about an interesting concept. The Eagles have petitioned the NFL for the entire football game to be called the second quarter. Why? If you watch the games, you understand that. We'll see what Ray and Damo think, along with much more as the Independence Blue Cross Monday Night Kickoff rolls on.
Hard Rock Cafe in Center City at 12th and Market Streets has it all. Great food takes center stage with dine-in and pickup available. Their burgers are so famous, they have their own chauffeurs. So order delivery and catering too. So if you're celebrating or just getting the band together, Hard Rock Cafe's got your back. For more info, hit up hardrockcafe.com.
I'm Lisa Thomas Laurie. If you're on Medicare, I've got great news. Keystone 65 HMO plans from Independence Blue Cross have earned 5 stars, Medicare's highest rating for 2022. Some plans have no monthly premiums, no deductibles, and no copays for primary care visits and some prescription drugs. Don't wait. Visit ibxmedicare.com/star.
Every year, Medicare evaluates plans based on a 5-star rating system. Keystone 65 offers HMO plans with a Medicare contract. Enrollment in Keystone 65 Medicare Advantage plans depends on contract renewal. This is a paid endorsement.
A truly unique dining experience awaits you at Fogo de Chão. Fogo de Chão awes patrons with their history and tradition of authentic Brazilian steakhouse, offering many cuts of decadent fire-roasted meats prepared over an open fire and served tableside by trained gaucho chefs. Currently featuring a holiday promotion. If you reserve your party now, your guests are rewarded with 2 gifts of your choosing. Contract required. Fogo de Chão, 1337 Chestnut Street in Center City, Philadelphia. For reservations, go to www.fogo.com or call 215-636-9700.
Don't hang out alone in the man cave this football season. Hang out at Cheerleaders with sexy entertainers, $4 Miller Lights, Jameson specials, and awesome game day prizes during all Sunday and Monday football games. Stop in before, during, or after the game to see your favorite entertainers and your chance to win an awesome game day prize. The most epic game day experience is at Cheerleaders Gentlemen's Club, where champions play. Open daily from noon till 2 a.m.
We now return to the Hard Rock Cafe, Philadelphia in downtown Center City for the Independence Blue Cross Monday Night Kickoff Show. Once again, here are your hosts, Paul Jolovitz and Paul Domowitch.
All righty, back here at the Hard Rock Cafe. Dan Baker and his wife Kathy in the house, ready for the Bull session at 6. Baseball team here is doing fairly well, you might have heard. The Eagles have petitioned the NFL. Eagles have scored 38,491 points in 6 second quarters this year. It seems to be Armageddon for them, and it's just and whatever for the other team. How can a team be so good in one quarter and so vanilla in others? Ray, Damo, does it make any sense to you, or is it just one of those factoids of life that just happen to be?
Well, I don't think it's the quarter as much as the possessions. They are not very good this year on their first and second possessions, which also, coincide with the first quarter. But then they somehow seem to get it in gear, third, fourth, fifth possessions, which generally start late fourth. Like yesterday, that drive, the bulk of that first scoring drive was in the first quarter.
Yeah, first play of the second quarter was the score.
Right. So, but yeah, you look around the league. There are teams that can't score. They're outscored in the second half. They're out. But this team, if it's going to be a Super Bowl team, needs to figure out a way to bring the hammer down in the second half against teams. I mean, after they get a lead like they've been getting with the second quarter scoring.
Yeah, I don't know that you can really explain it. I think that as Paul said, some of it has to do with possession, some of it has to do with field position, where you get the ball at the start of the second quarter. Sometimes that's just happenstance, and it makes the numbers a little misleading. But I mean, what they've done in the second quarter this year is not just good; it's historic.
Yep.
I mean, there's no team in the NFL in the entire history of the league that has ever through 6 games been as dominant in one quarter of play as the Eagles have been. I mean, they talked about the only team that's close was the 1950 Rams, who had 2 Hall of Fame quarterbacks. That was a Rams team that had
crazy legs, Bob Waterfield.
It had Bob Waterfield and Norm Van Brocklin, and it also had 2 Hall of Fame receivers in Crazy Legs Hirsch and Tom Fears, and it had Deacon Dan Towler, and it had Glenn Davis from Army, and I mean that was one of the great offensive machines in NFL history. And I once did, when I was at NFL Films, I did a piece about those Rams teams because Sid Gilman was the coach there, and the team was way ahead of its time, and Sid was way ahead of his time. A lot of the stuff that we later on came to associate with the quote-unquote West Coast offense in terms of formation, play design, route combinations and stuff, I mean, Sid Gilman was doing that with the Rams back in 50, 51, 52.
Well, it brings an interesting point to the table. There was a movie that all of us have seen, one or the other, called Back to the Future. And the running game, Ray and Paul, seems to be back to the future in the NFL. I mean, we talk about Jalen Hurts, so they're going to re-sign him. Miles Sanders, are they going to re-sign him? Donald, not a first-round draft pick, free agent at the end of this year. Last night, the Eagles got a little pass happy. I got a ton of tweets. Get to the run, pound the rock, pound the rock. Ray, I know you've been a proponent of that. They got to the running game in the second half. You primarily had their game-winning drive on the ground. Where did the running game fit in there? How does it fit in general, Domo? And is Miles Sanders long-term with this team or not?
Well, it's It's always going to fit into this offense. I mean, they're with their RPOs and the read option that they're running with Jalen and with him running the ball. I mean, their rushing attempts are always going to be among the league leaders.
Well, remember last year they did everything on the ground.
Yeah, but I mean yesterday they start with using all 3 of them early on, and then focus in down the stretch mostly on Miles, and he's having a solid year, not fumbling. I mean, nobody's fumbling. They haven't fumbled. They don't have a lost fumble 6 games into the season. That's unheard of.
Amazing.
They're the only team in the league. But getting back to what happens with his future, I mean, he's going to be a free agent. You look at there are, I want to say, like 7, 8 premier running backs that are going to be free agents next year. I don't know how that affects him. Certainly not them bringing in somebody else, but whether they decide, that they can, not overpay for a running back and go with Gainwell and Boston Scott and the kid from Ohio State that wasn't active yesterday. I don't know. I don't know how it affects him. Still drives me crazy. He wants to pop too many things outside.
Yeah.
But he's been a valuable part of this success they've had these first 6 games.
The only real question with Sanders has been, can he stay healthy?
Yeah.
He's had throughout his career, he's had a history of, he'll play really good, he's doing really good, all of a sudden he comes up with a nagging injury, and so far this year, he hadn't had that happen yet. But I think that would be, if I were the organization, that to me would be my biggest concern, would be, can he make it through a season? If he demonstrates this season that he can, then I think the chance of him coming back are probably pretty good. If you get the second half of the year and he breaks down again, then you probably let him go. But when he's healthy, he's a good back. I mean, he's got some burst. I know, like Paul said, sometimes his inclination to bounce things outside, he does that to a fault. But he has real explosion, and you look at his yards per carry average throughout his career; they've always been
good.
Very, very good. Yeah.
Ray Didinger, you're a topic of conversation unto yourself. You retired from WIP earlier this year. It was my pleasure to work with you in the limited amount I did at WIP forever and ever and ever. You're a Philadelphia icon in many ways. Dan Baker here to our left, celebrating the Phillies. You're a huge baseball fan. It's not common. You've been at the Link or the Vet or somewhere else for the last 900 years watching football games on Sundays, not taking cruises of England and France and Northern Ireland and Europe. How much are you enjoying your newfound freedom? How are you balancing sports with it? And just give everybody an update as to the life of Ray Didinger circa October 2022.
I'm enjoying it. I am. Part of the reason I made the decision that I made when I made it was my oldest granddaughter is in her senior year of college, and she's a really good field hockey player, and she's playing on her college field hockey team, Gwynedd Mercy, and it was her last year, and I wanted to see it. I wanted to be there to see her play. Because after this year, you don't get that back. You know, she's gone. She's, you know. So I wanted to see that. And my two grandsons this was going to be their first year playing organized football for the Drexel Hill Raiders.
Did they ask, anybody ask Grandpa Ray whether you thought they should play organized football?
We had, with their father, my son-in-law, we had that discussion some years ago. He said to me, you're probably not going to like hearing me say this, but your grandsons are not going to play football. I don't, the risk is too great. I said, look, I mean, they were both like 1 and 3. I said, Scott, we really don't have to worry about that like right now. Why don't you let them grow up a little bit? You know, they may not even have an interest. It may be moot, okay? Well, it turned out as they got a little bit bigger, yes, they had an interest. Yes, they wanted to play. And Scott said, all right, I'll let you play. So, in fact, and he's so into it now, he's part of the chain crew at the game. So he's sort of come around. But this was their first year of organized football, and I knew they were going to be playing every Saturday. And frankly, I would rather be out watching my grandsons play football than sitting on the radio talking to Murray from Mayfair. Not Murray, if you're listening. I didn't direct it at you personally. I was just speaking in general terms.
And I'm sure Mac now doesn't take offense either.
No. Of course
Dama,
not.
your grandson Tristan is a little over a year old. Do you see him as a Saquon Barkley or Jalen Hurts type when he grows up a little bit?
Well, both of his parents were athletes. His father played college football and baseball, so it'll be interesting to see what. Right now he's a shrimp, so he might not have a growth spurt until he's like a senior in high school. But
never know.
Yeah.
But in answer to your question, how am I enjoying it? I am enjoying it, and we actually had the experience. Something I've always looked forward to, and never had the opportunity to do, was watch a game with my son. I mean, something that most fathers and sons take totally for granted, that every Sunday we're on the couch watching the Eagles. He and I had never had that opportunity, ever.
How'd it go?
It was great. It was opening Sunday. It was Eagles Lions, and he came over to the house, and we actually sat together and watched the game for the very first time, and that was a blast.
Well, you were in the same building for the Super Bowl, right?
Yes, we were in the same building for a number of times, because a lot of times he shot Eagles games,
right.
and including he shot Super Bowl 52.
Yeah.
So we were in the same building a lot of times. We never had the opportunity to actually watch a game together. So having the chance to do that finally after all these years was really a lot of fun.
Well, you're always plugged into the NFL, and this year's no different. But from taking a step back, it's a little easier to see the big picture through the forest at times. Guys, either one of you can start with this. Joe Douglas, who went to the Jets 3-4 years ago, started to do a nice job out there. A guy that I talked about all last offseason, the guy I thought was the best player in this draft, Sauce Gardner, was their fourth pick by the Jets. They're 4-2 now. They beat Green Bay in Green Bay. I think part of that's the Jets. I think part of it's Green Bay is not a good team right now, and we're kind of going by past glories. But hell of a job by Joe Douglas thus far, huh?
Absolutely. I mean, I think he's building a team that I think is going to be a playoff team in the next year, 2, 3. He's one of the fastest defenses in the league. I'm not a big fan of Zach Wilson. We'll see how that goes.
Right.
But I mean, Joe comes from the Baltimore Ravens, from Ozzie Newsome's scouting tree. I mean, he knows what he's doing, and I think he's gonna build a solid team there.
Yeah, I thought they had a really good draft this year. I mean, they had a lot of good picks. They had a lot of high picks. But I looked at it and I said, this is really a good draft. Yeah. Adding on to their foundation, I thought that they were going to be. Now, I can't say I thought they were going to be a playoff team. Nor did I think that they were going to go to Lambeau and win. But they're, it's not a fluke. I mean, you see that they're pretty good. And how far they go is going to be determined a lot by the guy that Paul just referenced, it's Zach Wilson. If he turns out to be the player that they drafted him to be, then they got a chance to really go far. I wasn't that thrilled with him coming out. I had a lot of questions about him coming out, and I still do have some.
Yeah.
But if he turns out to be a legit frontline NFL quarterback, then they got the makings of a team that's going to be around for a while.
But he had started, I think, 10 games maybe in college. I
Yep.
mean, so,
Not many.
the learning curve is still, I think that's going to take him a while.
Another team that's going to have a learning curve is the 5-1 or the 4-2 Dallas Cowboys, whose owner, Jerry Jones, was talking about a perceived quarterback controversy, paid one of his guys $40-some million. The other, let's see if there's still a quarterback controversy in Dallas after this one. I'm guessing not, but I'm guessing we're going to be back for the final segment of the Independence Blue Cross Monday Night Kickoff right here from the Hard Rock Cafe. Got a nice full house, TVs for Monday Night Football. Exciting game, Chargers and Broncos tonight. Russell Wilson will show you again why retirement might be an option in a couple of years. We're back right after this.
Hard Rock Cafe in Center City has it all. Great food, free live entertainment on Friday nights, and they're the epicenter for special occasions. Let them rock and roll to you with catering for your next gathering, or book a private event space for your band's next meeting. Whether it's lunch, dinner, or late night, let them turn it up at Hard Rock Cafe at 12th and Market Street. For more info, visit hardrockcafe.com.
I'm Lisa Thomas Laurie. If you're on Medicare, I've got great news. Keystone 65 HMO plans from Independence Blue Cross have earned 5 stars, Medicare's highest rating for 2022. Some plans have no monthly premiums, no deductibles, and no copays for primary care visits and some prescription drugs. Don't wait. Visit ibxmedicare.com/star.
Every year, Medicare evaluates plans based on a 5-star rating system. Keystone 65 offers HMO plans with a Medicare contract. Enrollment in Keystone 65 Medicare Advantage plans depends on contract renewal. This is a paid endorsement.
A truly unique dining experience awaits you at Fogo de Chão. Fogo de Chão awes patrons with their history and tradition of authentic Brazilian steakhouse, offering many cuts of decadent fire-roasted meats prepared over an open fire and served tableside by trained gaucho chefs. Currently featuring a holiday promotion. If you reserve your party now, your guests are rewarded with 2 gifts of your choosing. Contract required. Fogo de Chão, 1337 Chestnut Street in Center City, Philadelphia. For reservations, go to www.fogo.com or call 215-636-9700.
Fall into relaxation at Hand and Stone Massage and Facial Spa. For an introductory price of just $69.95, enjoy the tranquility of their massage services and the rejuvenating glow their facial services provide. They even have specialty services such as a pumpkin facial or their signature hot stone massage. Restore, relax, and reset at one of Hand and Stone's 57 locations in Delaware, South Jersey, and Philadelphia, including the Lehigh Valley, for an introductory price of just $69.95. Call or book online at handandstone.com. Restrictions apply. See spa for details.
We now return to the Hard Rock Cafe, Philadelphia in downtown Center City for the Independence Blue Cross Monday Night Kickoff Show. Once again, here are your hosts, Paul Jolovitz and Paul Domowitch.
All right, here at the Hard Rock, where we are either 5 or 6 o'clock every week. Certain team called the Phillies is screwing that up a little bit. We're going to be here at 5 o'clock next week also, Damo. John Spagnola will be our guest. And it's an unbelievable time we have here in Philadelphia. Now, never mind the Flyers starting their season unexpectedly 2-0. Sixers starting tomorrow night. I'm a little bit pessimistic about the Sixers because they have a guy that I just cannot stand in James Harden. We'll see what they can do. But, Ray, the fans of this city, we talk about this weekend. They came out in full force. Anybody watching on the tube anywhere saw a baseball atmosphere that few have ever seen, a football atmosphere that Mike Tirico pumped up last night. This city was at its finest for a big party. They put on a show this weekend, and I think looked great to the country. So much about Philly this, Philly that. Philly came up huge this weekend, fan-wise.
Yeah, and I was really glad to see it because we all know, that Philly takes its lumps in around the country. I mean, it's a target of so many, national media cheap shots, and I think it's so wrong, and I think it's so unfair. But you get a weekend like this where you had the 2 great Phillies games with a tremendous crowd who actually I think made a difference in that game. I mean, there's no question that they helped the Phillies win that series. Yeah. And then last night, I mean, you just saw, Cooper Rush has, here's a guy that was 4-0. And last night, it stretches of that game looked like he had never played before. Yeah. And I think the crowd had a lot to do with it. So if the Eagles manage to get the number 1 seed in the NFC, and I know we're looking saying that, I'm looking way down the road. But
Easy
certainly
schedule.
but it's certainly not out of the question.
Yeah.
I mean, given the way they're playing and given the schedule and given the relative strength of the conference, it's not out of the question that they could be the number 1 seed going in. They're going to be a really tough out with 2 home games here in January. They'll be really hard to beat.
Absolutely.
I mean, just the fans and the way they handled it last night and the way they handled it this weekend, both rivalry teams, the Braves and the Cowboys, which takes me to the Cowboys' wonderful owner, Jerry Jones, who just had his 80th birthday. He's a tremendous oil man. Nobody can question that. You can't question whether he's a tremendous general manager or spokesman for a football team. Guys, if the schedule's 1 to 100, with 1 being you could fall asleep with a question and 100 is an emergency for all cases, what kind of quarterback controversy do we have in Dallas right now? Jerry Jones talking about a perceived controversy. How much does Dak have to worry about? I'm guessing close to 1, maybe 0.6.
Charlie, he was just kidding.
I don't think he was kidding. That's the
seriously.
sad part, guys.
No, he knows who his quarterback is. He was just kind of trying to give Cooper Rush a little confidence, I guess. I don't know what.
Ray, I think he was talking to himself. I'm not naive enough to think that he actually pits Cooper Rush against Dak Prescott, but I think enough was happening in Dallas that in his mind, in some weird vacuum, maybe something was happening there. No?
Perhaps, but I never thought that it had any basis in reality. I mean, you ask on a scale of 1 to 100 how valid that was. To me, it was about as equal as Cooper Rush's quarterback efficiency rating in the first half, which was 1.0.
1.0, yeah.
I've known Jerry since he bought the team, and I like him in a lot of ways. But I mean, he's the reason they're never going to win a Super Bowl as long as he wants to be the general manager, and as long as he's alive and owning that team, he's never going to allow someone else to pull the strings, other than his son. So that's bad news for the Cowboy fans.
One good news for Philadelphia is the humility our quarterback has in Jalen Hurts, who says the right thing almost all the time. Nick Sirianni with the "how about them Eagles" thing last night, he's into the vibe. He's coaching a good game, looks on the sidelines like it. But to me, guys, you always learn the most when you look at what's wrong with my team, what's wrong with me, even when you're excelling. If you're Albert Einstein, what do I need to know more about? Everybody has flaws. Nobody's perfect, and the Eagles are part of that. Ray, 6-0. They've been behind very little this year. They've run over the league. What do the Eagles have to improve at? Is it Jonathan Gannon, his aggressiveness? Is it something about a player? Is it something about a system? Both you guys, if you can answer this, what's the one area in which you're looking most for improvement for a really good team to get better?
I don't know that you have to change or improve much of anything. I think they've got the formula. The formula is don't turn the ball over.
Yeah.
Win the giveaway takeaway, which to me is still the biggest stat in football.
Sure.
I mean, you can talk about your DVOAs all you want, but to me, giveaway takeaway is you'll throw around the league on any given Sunday or Monday. Team that wins the turnover battle wins the game, and
Who has the ball more?
and you can't do it any better than the Eagles are. I mean, they're taking the ball away at a record pace, and they're not losing it at all. Their penalties are way down, and they're winning time of possession. I mean, these are not spectacular, light up the scoreboard kinds of numbers. But if you don't turn the ball over, you win time of possession, and you don't make mistakes. You don't make dumb mistakes and penalties in crucial situations. That's a formula for winning week in and week out. And sometimes you'll blow out the other team and it'll look great, but sometimes you'll just have to grind it out, as they did last night and they did in Arizona. But if you follow that basic formula, don't make mistakes, but force the other team to make them and control the football, you'll win in any era.
Damo?
Yeah, I mean, going into this season, I thought the two things Jalen had to improve at was his play in the red zone and on third down. Third down, he's doing much better. They're averaging their third down percentage this year, right now is like 43.7%. They need to stay out of third and long a little bit more than they are. Red zone.
Let me interrupt for 1 second. This is a serious question. You think it's a joke, but do the Eagles treat third down like every other team, or do they treat third down merely as a prelude to fourth down? They figure you get 4 downs to do it.
If they can get in a third and two or less, I think they treat it as like a 4 down situation almost every time. The red zone's just he's hardly thrown in the red zone because their run success down there is so good, and including his. I mean, he's got 6 touchdowns, rushing touchdowns. So they approach the red zone totally different than most teams. I mean, they're one of the most successful teams in the league. I think they went into last night's game like 8th in the league in red zone offense, and but they don't throw. I mean, they run it.
All right, guys, they don't play the Giants till late in the season, weeks 14 and 18. They finish up with them here. They had the Christmas Eve game in Dallas. We know about that. But the schedule makers of the NFL, the whole NFC East, not just the Eagles, they have about as beneficial a schedule as you could ever imagine. Obviously, you can lose any game in the NFL any given Sunday. But Pittsburgh after the bye, Pittsburgh, Houston, Washington, doesn't get much more difficult after that. Ray, I don't see him going undefeated. I think it's way too early to even hypothesize. But is there a minefield that worries you down the road, or is it just going to be a week where something goes wrong and you can't foresee it now?
No, not really. I mean, I was looking at this a couple weeks ago, and I looked at that schedule, and I knew going in when the schedule first came out, and I hate to do that spring thing, WLW. I won't do that, but I will look at the schedule in general terms, and I said, they got a break here. I mean, they got the NFC North, which I don't think is a good division. They got the AFC South, which I don't think is a good division. Their own division, I didn't think was going to be that good. Might be better than we thought. But there are other breaks within the schedule. I mean, first 10 weeks, they have nothing back to. It's home away, home away, home away. There's no long road trips. They got 5 primetime games, 4 of them at home. You've got 17 game schedule. Your odd game is a home game. I mean, everything really laid out beautifully for this team. And so far, it's playing out that way.
Already beat the Vikings, already beat the Cowboys. Domo, how do you see that?
Yeah, going in, I mean, I thought 8-2 after 10 games was very doable. Now it'd be a disappointment. I mean, they should be 9-0 when you look at, you mentioned the 3 teams they're playing next. I mean, and their schedule is set up such that Tennessee and Green Bay, which, in Green Bay doesn't look like as tough a game as it was, but they're both at home. The schedule's very favorable. I mean, I think they have a legitimate shot at, unless injuries play a factor here, at being a number 1 seed.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to hand it over now to another team whose schedule is what it is, and that's the NLCS, starting tomorrow night in Fish Taco Town, San Diego. Dan Baker, Tommy Green with the Bull Session. Ray Didinger, we cannot thank you enough for being our guest. Best of luck in the future, both in the sports world and with life. Thank you so much.
Oh, it was my pleasure. Always great visiting with you guys.
Damo, thank you as always. Great stuff.
Thank you, and glad to have my old colleague Ray sitting next to me.
Rode forever with the Daily News together. We'll be back here tomorrow, next Monday night, John Spagnola. 5 o'clock next Monday night will be our guest. Stay tuned for the Bull Session. Got some people to thank here. Chris Summer produced this fine program. Keith Noonan back at the station. For Ray Didinger, for Paul Domowitch, I'm Paul Jolovitz for the Independence Blue Cross Monday Night Kickoff, saying stay tuned for the Bull Session. Go Eagles and go Phillies.
You've been listening to the Independence Blue Cross Monday Night Kickoff Show. Tonight's show is an exclusive presentation of WBCB 1490 and 107.3 FM, and heard around the world at WBCB1490.com.